I'm back on KindaSound Radio with the wonderful Cheryl Prince. How are you, Cheryl?
Very well, yes. Things are really hotting up at the moment in a really interesting way. I feel like there's been an energy of like, let's move into position and let's go for it.
That's incredible. I absolutely love it. I struggle with your surname sometimes because you're more a princess than a
I know
prince. I
it's
want
a
to say
strange.
Cheryl Princess is here.
That was either you were about to add it on. Yeah, it is a strange one, isn't it? But I like it because it leads back to Scottish roots. And
Right.
I think there was a lot of interesting stuff on the lands of Scotland. Well, we know there is. And that I think there's an ancestry there. I mean, my family are partially from Scotland, but I think the name has an interesting something. I don't know what it is, but there's something going on there.
Well, it's a beautiful name. And thank you so much for coming back to Kind of Sound. Do you know, Cheryl, there are people when I interview them and I do like a 20-minute interview or something, and I think, that was good, but I probably won't interview them again, you because I kind of got all I need to.
Right,
But
in
when we
20
did the interview, I just thought, right, when she coming back on Kind of Sound, you're a
Yeah.
fascinating person. We had a lovely day together around the sacred sites of Bury St Edmunds that we're going to get into later on. But this show is about 5D storytelling for spiritual writers. Now, when your email dropped in, and kind of sounders, I'm just going to give you the website now, 5dtheatre.co.uk. Subscribe to that newsletter because your newsletters are just they're very compelling. I mean, I want to sign up, right, for the 5D storytelling for spiritual writers. I'm like, that's me, isn't it? That's me. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so it's really precious to me. And I think that's why I'm saying the time is now moving. And if people are like, I got to do this now, do it now. That's what I'm saying. Don't hang around because I can see the industry is shifting that I'm working in. I work in theatre, but also I spent 8 years getting a story out of me. And now I'm on my second play. And interestingly, I've just been working on it. So it's in the background of my screen right now. It's like, "Ah, I've got a couple of hours, let's go."
Right.
But the process that I worked through, so happy that I worked as a healer alongside working as a writer and an actor. I think I'd have been destroyed if I hadn't have got those skill sets. But I sometimes think people might believe that you go into writing and you don't need to heal everything. You really do. If you're going to write what I call a soul story or a 5D story, it means that you are bringing through nothing short of a transmission from the divine. That is what your soul set you up to do, a story that is going to change the paradigm. And, if we're spiritual storytellers, we're probably not interested in anything less. But I did this solo, going, oh my God, all this stuff was coming out. I was working with healers the whole time I was getting my first story out. I was working in the industry, trying to find where I fit in the world and trying to get this big story out of me. And it's always bigger than you expect. And that's why I felt a really big spiritual push to go, you're not the only one that works in this way. And how can I support these stories coming out more than me? And so I'm currently doing a producer course. I started last night. I've got a mentorship via Bedford. I'm really happy with that. And this is about building a bigger bridge. I'm in talks with other people about let's get these stories out. How can we support other storytellers? And spiritual writers are what it's all about, not hiding the fact that we're spiritual, but beyond that, that we're real. And I have my own genre that I call spiritual realism. And it's named that because I don't think you can put spiritual characters at the forefront of your story or your own story yourself without going, here's what it's like to be spiritual. And it's confusing and it's multidimensional and it's bigger than we expected. And it's sometimes difficult, it's sometimes magical. If we can put all of that into a story, the reality of being spiritual and not being like, oh,
Yeah,
woo,
yeah, yeah.
then the next generation, the soul legacy, and going forward can really go, oh, so we're coming into a spiritual paradigm here, and this is how we can navigate it. It's such a gift.
Absolutely. There's one of the things that stuck stuck out to me in your newsletter. It's brilliant how you do it as well. If I think if you're also if you're just a if you're you've got a business or you've got a project, just look at Cheryl's newsletters and how she's structuring them, the colours and everything. It's a space you can read it. It's well done. I just want to read this one to you. Stories will change our reality and raise our collective consciousness. All right, so I'm a believer here, but just for the kind of sounders out there, people who might think, well, how's that going to happen?
Yeah. So if we don't know something is possible, we can't think that we can do it. So actually, what we've been trapped into is a stuck paradigm. For example, I watched something last Christmas with my nieces, a big Hollywood movie. I can't remember. It might have been Barbie or something. And they were like, oh, yeah, when you die, it's the end. The end. They die, they're gone. Then I watched another movie and someone said pretty much the same thing. Oh, when you're dead, you're gone, the end. And I was like, this is programming
Yeah,
young children to go, okay, you're not a spirit, you're
yeah,
not an eternal soul, you're this. So you've set the bar at this is the consciousness.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you present stories, for example, my first play is about eternal life, somebody coming back from one soul life into another that was killed as a witch. That wasn't the end. Her death wasn't the end. She came back to tell her tale, my tale. So I'm already telling you something a little bit different. And then I'm bringing something forward about mediumship and working with the realms. So that way, that possibility is like, oh, shift of consciousness. We don't have to get trapped. Now, that's not to say we all have to believe the same thing, but what we don't realize is that the mainstream wash is already telling you to believe one thing.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to raise the collective consciousness by telling new stories with new possibilities. And it was the reason the Library of Alexander was burnt down. It was the reason the scrolls get buried. It's the reason the copy of the Bible is so edited. Because if you give people the proper teachings, the origin teachings, the consciousness shifts.
Yeah. Wow. That's so true, isn't it? That really is so true as well as we learn more. John Michel's writing in one of his books and he's saying about I passed through a town and there were all these youths. And this was like pre-mobile phones. So I mean he would have if he was still alive now, he'd have done his nut, but he's just like they're all just like, just go around the town square and everything. And he said it saddened him to see that they weren't inspired by the
Mm.
ideals of Plato or or whatever this high code of living. And he said if they knew about something like the circle of perpetual choirs, how in the old times people had maintained a ceaseless chant to enchant the land with harmony. He was like, if we can get these ideas to these kids, maybe they'll be the singers or the musicians, or maybe they can engage in it because where they were gathering was on the central heart of the town. They gathered at the node point, but it was inactive. But they were still gathering there, but they'd
Mm.
lost that. They'd lost that sense of direction or maybe inspiration. So he said, if they could hear these stories,
Mm.
what could be more inspirational to them? So that's kind of I mean, I'm pumped by it. I'm pumped by fancy
And you
storytelling.
know you have that story to write about the perpetual
Well, I
quiet.
actually do, but maybe I need a bit of help with it, which is why I'm interested in what you're doing here. So.
Yeah.
You do a lot, don't you? You got like you got your thing you're doing, you're writing, but you're
Yeah.
helping people as well, aren't you? Working with one-to-ones, and also you're working with groups of people.
Yeah, yeah. So that's starting more on the live aspect of trying to meet with people in communities and trying to roll out some things in Luton where I'm at and go other places, starting to do shamanic storytelling circles. And interestingly, I'm starting to work with someone about working with neurodiverse brains. So I'm neurodiverse myself. I believe it's the biggest superpower there is. Because if you've got a brain that thinks one way, it can't fit into the box. That's what my brain, the box, I can't get it. I don't get it. The box, what? Get me out of it. Get me out of it.
Yeah, sure,
So
sure.
this means I find channeling really easy.
Yeah.
So to speak to spirits, to speak to, because I'm beyond the box, I'm beyond the dimension, I'm beyond the trap,
Yeah.
basically.
The trap. That's it.
Beyond the trap, because I can't, it doesn't work for my brain. You give me a logical answer, I go, but I can see beyond the box. That doesn't make sense to me. And that's the beauty of having a neurodiverse brain. And so I'm also working to develop workshops and ways of creating work. And that is also how I support spiritual writers anyway, because I find a lot of spiritual people do think outside the box, might be neurodiverse, might be a bit different thinking. And so that we can actually go, okay, our way of thinking might be groundbreaking, the change makers, the trailblazers, rather than, I mean, if you ask the government, I'm disabled. So
Right.
there's two very different ways of looking at it, a
Wow.
disability or
Wow.
advanced consciousness. And so I just want to, yeah, bring that gift to other people that maybe don't see their way of being as a gift. And that's so much the case for spiritual people. They often feel like they're cursed with their own gifts. And that's the same with neurodiverse. So that's another way my work is rolling out, but also, and I'm so interested that you're kind of moving in these ways about bringing storytelling to new communities,
Yeah.
working on the land, working to tell stories in communities. That's a big way I want to go as
It, it
well.
it totally does. It's like I went to Crete, right, to the palace of Knossos, which was built 5,000 years ago. They had like running water and like a decent sewage system. There 20,000 people lived there 5,000 years ago in that advanced civilization, Minoan civilization. But when I went there to the palace, that we didn't have a guide, and it was just a load of old rocks.
Right.
There was no one to bring it to life. And my old dad, and if you're listening, Dad, yeah, how are you? Yeah. He's writing his story at the moment, The Treasures of Drognadil, which is about this time traveling witch Drognadil. But bless him, he's getting a bit lost in his own mind as he gets older. But I hope you get there, Dad. I hope you get that book done. Bless you. God bless you. But my mum and dad, when they go to places, they'll say that always get a guide. So if you go to like Ely Cathedral, for example, or
Mm,
Canterbury, whatever, there's people who can like bring it to life, like bring these stories to life in
mm.
just these incredible ways. I was even thinking, Cheryl, like I got me tea right before the interview, so I can, and I put in sea buckthorn,
Oh,
which is super high in vitamin C. I'm holding it up for those of you on the old watching on the old YouTube. And then
yeah,
I
that's
put
beautiful.
in some rosemary, right? I put in some rosemary, there we go. And as I was just getting ready for the interview, I thought, imagine the stories, the soul stories of like sea buckthorn
Mm.
or the story of rosemary. And I just started tripping into that. And I was like, wow, how deep can you go with this?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
make it meaningful and make it useful. You know, it's like often when I'm going to say it to you, what's the most useful thing you can share with people?
Useful thing. So I think you share with people whatever you went through and figured out, and you don't want people to take so long with it. So I did this sort of process for 8 years to try and get a story out. I found it very difficult. I also felt I needed someone to come in, like a soul guide, and go, oh, so now I can soul guide my own
Um,
work after
yeah, yeah,
years.
yeah, yeah.
So I'm like guiding myself to not get stuck in the story. So sometimes it's painful. You go, oh God, I don't. So I'll be like guiding myself. Okay, you need to take time off and do a bit of a healing there. But I can also look at the work and go, oh, that's okay. That's beautiful, but that's too much, and people aren't going to get that. You want this to have the most powerful impact. And so, what I learned through walking through this slowly, going, how does spiritual stories work,
Mm.
is that you need to be really strict on the structural aspects
Yeah,
because you're trying to change the paradigm. So, you don't want people to think this is some woo-woo story that doesn't have the impact. And I say
right.
that because I read this beautiful story by this woman that was talking about a soul walking. And I was so grateful that she wrote about it because it's not that often talked about and it's something that was
Mm.
coming into my play. But she got to the end of the story when the guy, and this was a true life story, had had a walk in and was figuring out who he was. And the story ended there.
Mm.
And I was like, oh my God, you've got this beautiful story. I've read this whole book and I've got to the end and you've left me
Oh,
with the actual crunch of the story. And so
was she
it's
getting
like
ready for part two? Was she? Do you think she was
there's no
already
part
planning the
two.
sequel? Oh,
And
that
you
was it.
no, that was
Oh,
it. And then
the
she was like, oh,
cliffhanger just left you. You were just
and,
waiting.
it was such a powerful story. And I was like,
Ah,
you've been given this gift of this story, but you could tell also that she was slightly uncomfortable telling this story. Oh, I suppose this is a weird concept and judging herself. And we all do that when we put something on the page that's very vulnerable. We go, oh, there's no writer, and especially not a writer actor that because I'm going to have to get up and tell it. So I can't hide behind anything. I can't go, it's the writer's fault.
okay.
Oh, it's the actor's fault. Oh, crap, I'm both. So there's no hiding in anything.
Yeah,
So it's that mixture of telling people that when you're writing these stories, they'll be difficult. You'll want to hide. And so sometimes you do need someone to guide you to go, no, go a little bit further. Or actually, that's what's really special about your
yeah,
writing. And yeah, it's so, or stop and heal something, or go, encourage you to go. So I think that thing about soul guidance, if you're a really good soul guide of yourself, use that in your writing. But that can take a while to master that craft of because that's literally what I'm doing. I'm going, it's not about me. How does the story work? So I'm literally soul guiding the whole of my story. And that's kind of what I offer to others, which is what I do in my one-to-ones, which is what I do in life.
yeah,
Soul guide,
yeah.
to put it simply.
I reckon, Cheryl, that I mean, for example, if I got the opportunity to show the well-being exercises to Great Britain, to everyone in Great Britain, if I was like Mr. Motivator, I wouldn't probably have the Lycra. But if I was like, I've showed people the well-being exercises, I could dramatically affect the health of our country just
Mm.
by inspiring people to be able to exercise in a fun and simple way that's very good for them. It's like dramatically, right? If I had the opportunity. And I think that if people tuned into what you're doing and got the support from what you're doing, I think there's so many people out there that would be able to create incredible works.
Mm.
But without that help, without the guide, you're like me at the Palace of Knossos and it's just a load of old, but I think that there's that old saying, isn't there? Like the blind can't lead the blind. So it's
Mm.
like the helper, the teacher, the guide, whatever. It's like it's just a useful role, isn't it? It's a useful role just to be able to say, okay, look, I've worked on this for like 30 years and this is what I come up with. This is well-being exercises. Do you want to try them? Right? And then,
Yeah.
give it a go. And it's the same, isn't it? It's like being able to help people in these really powerful ways. Because let's just talk a minute about like spiritual literature, right? And spiritual work and spiritual literature. And I mean, what's your favorite book? Do you have one?
I think my favorite, I don't. I read so many. I love books. But the one that came in when you said favorite, I think has to be Many Lives, Many Masters. So the reason I loved that was because of I stopped basically my writing wasn't working years ago. I was trying to lead a whole group of actors to do a spiritual story in improv. But at the time, I wasn't that out there about being spiritual. So I was bringing in shamanic drums and trying to guide them through. They were having these past life experiences, and I was like, "Whoa, okay." And I just basically decided I needed to write this story. No one could write it for me. So I took a Christmas off, and I was sitting there dog sitting as a writer's retreat. And I was by myself because I need 3 weeks, and I read the book by Brian Weiss, Many Lives, Many
Mm.
Masters. And I realized my whole play was about past life and karma and two people meeting again. And what does that mean? And because he put it down on paper, he just validated the process that I was going through. So suddenly
Yeah,
reading that book made me go, oh, this is what my story's doing. Okay, so now I need to be honest about, okay, this is my past life. This is what's going on. And from that point on, I was like, this is a play about my past life. And I started to speak about it. Whereas before, I said, I'm writing a play about a witch that was killed, something
yeah,
else that happened. And so he gave me the license to be honest about what I was doing. And that book changed me. And he did that. Brian Weiss was working with patients for, I think, 30 odd years, and he wasn't into past lives at all. But he kept having people come and go right into the in-between stage, their past lives. And it just became a fact for him. And it got to a point where he was like, I can't not speak out about this. Even though everybody ridiculed him
That's
in the
right.
industry, psychiatrists, they were like, you're a weirdo, blah, 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 blah. But he got to the point where it was like, I have to. And so he changed the paradigm.
Yeah.
And me reading that story, I was like, so I'm gonna be honest about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so that I think's the nugget with spiritual stories, because most spiritual writers, even if you look back about, biblical texts or whatever text you want to talk about, probably got ridiculed in their time for what they were writing. It probably didn't go down well. You were
Yeah.
either heretic, you burnt off, or you destroyed. There isn't many really amazing texts that aren't risking their career or their life back in the day to give you this knowledge.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for me, it was like, thank you for doing that, because you've inspired me to create my own work, and that's the ripple effect.
So tell us a little bit about the live, like live theatre, for example. So you've got the written words, so you write
Mm.
a book or you write a script or whatever, and then what's it like? Because I've never done this. I've never written like a play or something. We did this nature stories series where we took environmental issues like plastic in the oceans, and then me and Eliar created these hand puppets. So I was like Sea Dog and he was Parrotfish. Hi, I'm Sea Dog, and we filmed. That's as
Nice.
far as I've got. I mean, we were telling important stories. I suppose it's in a sense, but what's it
Yeah.
like to? What's the difference between that written word that you could read, like you're reading a book or whatever, Shakespeare, whatever? What's the difference in that? And then what's the difference in then when it is performed?
Yeah, so I think that was my biggest initiation when I started to perform stuff. I think mainly because I had my spiritual awakening as an actor auditioning when the spirit of my nan came through. I was
Right.
in an audition room. And
Nana.
so, yeah, which was a phenomenal experience where my nan literally came through, broke the veil, this beautiful golden light. And I was literally in the room moving and
Yeah.
painting my own name. So for me, acting, getting up and saying words is a big experience.
Yes.
I got to understand very early on, because I was tapping into the energies of space while I was training as an actor, that you can hold consciousness in this space.
Yes.
So you can shift energy, you can move energy, but you can also bring something bigger in. Now, a
Yes.
lot of the industry know this, that you can bring something bigger in. So it's a choice about what you're
Oh.
bringing in.
Oh.
So,
Right.
yeah,
They know
yes.
it.
Oh, they know they
They.
shamanically set stages. They know what they're doing.
Right.
They know
Right.
spell magic. They know,
Right.
there are some big players that know this stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
But also that you can, so for me, I started to realize, oh, so I need to work with the spirits, with the energy, who wants to come in. And because my great grandfather was a famous medium, so he held seances. So I got to understand that for me, theatre is a seance.
Wow.
It's a
That's
live seance because there's spirits that want to come in and tell these stories with you. And how I really realized that is when I was doing the reading for my play Awaken in Scotland. And I tried to do it as an actor, a 3D actor. And by that, I was in my head, I was thinking about, will this affect a lot of people? Will we be getting bums on seats to see
yeah.
it?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't really in the performance. I was very much thinking about the success of the
Yeah.
performance, let's say.
Sure. Sure.
And then all of the actors weren't really connecting, and I started to tell them that, and I was just ended up being a nightmare. And the director said to me, "Go outside and have a little think about what you're doing this for."
Wow.
I went to by the sea,
Yeah.
by the beautiful sea, and I sat down. I said, "Why am I doing all this?" And then I heard Sarah Spindler. So my lead play, which is why I was in Bury, which we'll get
Yes.
to in a moment,
Yes.
is Sarah Spindler, who was killed as a witch in Bury St Edmunds by Matthew Hopkins. Really famous trial in Bury
Yeah.
St Edmunds. 18 people lost their lives. And I sat there and I was like,
Shocker.
oh, I'm doing it for Sarah Spindler. And I went back in, and
No.
nothing else matters. This is for Sarah. It was a
Whoa.
beautiful performance. And right at the start, you can see this little orb of light circling my head on the film.
No. I just got to shut my curtain. The old sun's coming round. Keep
Yeah,
going.
you got light as well.
Yeah, that'd be light, yeah.
Yeah, we
Oh,
love the light.
we do love the light, but I watch it back and I look, I've got half a face.
Yeah,
You put it so connecting to the purpose, connecting to
yeah.
why is so powerful, isn't it?
Connecting to
Otherwise,
the why and knowing that there's more than you on stage and acknowledging that, if you're going to work in a 5D multidimensional soul led way, there's more than you on stage. So this energy, this is spirit. I said to a speaker once when he was doing a talk, I said, there's two people with you. There's
yeah,
a legacy, your ancestors are on stage with you, acknowledge them,
yeah,
and they'll
yeah,
give you
right.
power.
That's right. That's so powerful. So Juliet, she was an actress when she was younger, and she said the same as you. She said, like, I could, I could like transmit this consciousness whilst I was doing like whatever, like Shakespeare or whatever. It was able to come through in this environment, and a spiritual content and delivery could uplift masses of people. So she said that to me like years and years ago. Like it was some, but she's not, she's now on stage talking about nutrition or whatever, right? Superfoods or health, right? So she's still doing that. She's doing that process, but the subject matter has changed.
Yeah,
And it's interesting when you're saying about these people who sort of like know about this. And I've never seen him live, but Carlos Santana, the great guitarist, like someone said they went to one of his gigs, and like three times during the performance, he reminded people, we are here for love. And through our music, we are transmitting love to the world. Like that's what it's about. But he reminds people, like Deep Yogi in the 70s and all that, Carlos Santana. And other people have said he is like a shaman when he plays his guitar.
yeah,
But it's like, and I suppose more, I don't want to go too down the rabbit hole with this, but as more comes out about Hollywood, and
yeah.
like all this stuff, all these like some of these rascals and what they've been up to, um, and literally brainwashing people, literally programming television, programming people, with a view of reality, well, this is how it is. This is all there is. So my old dad, bless him. I said, well, what do you think, And he goes, well, when you die, you're dead. I said, do you really believe that? Yes, I do. And I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, I had no idea.
Right.
I mean, he was studied zoology at university, but I thought surely life has taught him. Do you know what I mean? There's more. But I thought, God, he actually doesn't believe there's more than this mortal body and the brain and whatever, because the stories he's been told, and they are just stories. He's been told
Mm.
stories, like if you talk about the story of man-made climate change, and it is just a story on the video, and maybe it will now come up, is a thing by the United Nations on YouTube. Climate change is due to man-made influences affecting carbon emissions. They're actually telling you their story. If you tell them a different story,
Yeah, I know. I've seen that, and it's like things that come up. You're like, okay, I didn't need that. Thank you
yeah,
for
thank
trying
you. Yeah, thank you, UN,
to.
for giving me your story of events. Oh my golly. But I tell you what, I love stories. I love stories. And I can't wait for I was seeing in your newsletter. Just give us a little bit on this here. Look, it is, I've been soul traveling a lot, discovering material for my second play. The Witch, the Bitch, the whore was your angel. I mean,
Quite a title,
title
isn't
like
it?
that, it's like, what's that about? Just give the kind of sound was just a little bit.
Yes, and then remind me to go back to song, because I want to share what
Right,
happened
yeah.
to me in Berry when you were singing. So
Yes, sorry.
let me come back to there as
We'll
well.
go back there, yes.
Yeah. Yes, that so the second play, yeah, is it's very much about an artificial agenda to reprogram humanity to this artificial AI timeline rather than their divine design. So the fight is between an earth angel, Lily, and very interesting, it is a take on Lily and Eve. They're both in the story of what it could look like if they were in the modern day. But also, Edgar Casey talks about Lily, the original archetype, being the first genetically modified being,
Yeah.
and that she was taken and modified. So it's very interesting to.
Yeah.
I tend to channel all these works, and then I look out and go, "Oh, people are actually speaking about this."
Well, he was channeling a bit,
Very
wasn't
yeah, and the very yeah, he was, wasn't he? And the very first AI model that they brought through was called Eve. So I'm like, why are they
he? Yeah.
naming the same thing? And then
Yeah.
Sophia, I'm like, they know what they're doing. They're reverting the ancient consciousness. And so yeah, it's very much a play about where I think we're going to be. I've placed it in 2030 deliberately to
Wow.
see where we're going to end up. And
Yeah.
it's to try and awaken consciousness and say, look, don't choose this timeline, choose this one. But
Yeah.
I'm putting it in a form of my own struggle to wake up, struggle with my head voice, the desire that we all have to just make life easy. Whereas what I'm showing is that if you go on the spiritual trajectory, it's not going to be a quick fix, it's not going to be easy, but you're going back to your divine design and it's going to
Yeah.
be much easier that way. But there are forces that want to take you this way. So it's a very, I call it the spiritual truth tale of the shadow in society. It's quite big. And I've been like, and interestingly, last week I was running the Black and White Rose course at the moment, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
about spiritual truth and psychic gifts. And the Black Rose features throughout this play as well. And I was channeling some stuff through about, I was doing some regression work to get my material out. And the stuff that I channeled, I was looking up some CIA reports, and it was stuff from out of the reports that was already out there. And I hadn't read them at all. And I was like,
Mhm.
those moments when the channelings match
Yeah.
up with
Yeah. Yeah.
reading documents. And so I think I just say that because sometimes it's going to really surprise you when you do psychic writing, what you can find out. I mean,
Right.
I always start it with going, oh, I'm just writing a story. And then Spirit's like, you're not just writing a story, love.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
meant to be bringing this information back out.
And
So,
truth is stranger than fiction. That's what they say, don't they?
absolutely.
Like, so, I mean, what's
Yeah.
going on in the world? If people knew, they'd do their nuts. If people really,
Yeah.
if they got the full download, this is what the full disclosure, there would be, you know, I think that's why it's drip fed at times. I mean, what would my dad think? Am I the eternal blissful soul? It's good news, Dad.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
tell us about Cheryl. We've got about 4 minutes left. Tell us about Song and Bury St Edmunds.
Yeah. So we went to the lands of Bury St Edmunds, which was a beautiful experience. Thank you so much for that tour. Like you said earlier, if you just go and see stones without a tour guide, it's not the same. And I had a profoundly spiritual experience with yourself guiding me and Julia there as well. It was beautiful. And we had this moment where we sat in the middle of the ley lines there at Inbury, so beautiful, in those sacred lands. And we were like, we're going to sing here. And you were both singing, and I was sat in the middle, and I got the message to close my eyes. And it felt like I was taken back to a temple time in Egypt when song vibration was so clear because it could ricochet against the temples that they're building so that they can animate the sound. And I felt both of your songs just swirling around me and this consciousness waking up in me. It was so profound, this beautiful prayer. I felt the ley lines activate underneath me. And then I heard Matthew Hopkins come in, who'd done this on the land. I'd constantly been like, why did he do this? And I realized he showed me how he'd been puppeteered. And I saw that it was so much bigger than his name had been chucked out there. And I'm not saying I support what he did, butchering 300 odd people in the end. But I realized he was a puppet to a bigger thing. And I just saw his energy go across. And I was like, I forgive you. Just go to the light. I understand it. And all that was in the moment of you both singing this one song. I can't even remember what the song was because I was just flipping through the dimensions and feeling the land. And then I just knew that we'd had such a big, powerful moment. And that was way beyond, I didn't even know why I had to go there, but
Yeah.
I knew I had to heal something big before my play could go on its next journey.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you gave me such a gift. So, yes, you can do this profound impact with storytelling, but so can you do it with a story of a song, a
Yeah.
sound, So wow, thank you.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, we look for we'll do Saffron Walden next.
Yes,
When you
we
come,
will.
we'll do Saffron Walden because we can walk the sacred sites of Saffron Walden and we'll go up to Ring Hill and everything. That'll be so beautiful. Look, we're just wrapping up now here on Kind of Sound, and we do value you. So do check out 5dtheatre.co.uk. It's Cheryl Prince. She is a princess. So that's just amazing. Your work is amazing. Congratulations on it all. I'm really impressed as well by your output, you know, just from someone who's knocking out content myself, do you know what I mean? And writing
Yeah.
newsletters, doing all this, not just for myself, but for other people. So that is superb. So, Cheryl, final words from you for the Kind of Sounders.
Yeah, to say that we're all going through a shift of consciousness. So you don't have to be a singer, you don't have to be a writer or a performer, but that if you can take time in this precious time to sit in your own consciousness and try and lift that vibration, we're all in this doing it together. And so many of us, there's so much power in that. The fact that I can go to lands and read souls and do this, and so many people do different levels of work.
Yeah.
But just, yeah, take a moment to sit on your mat or move your body, however your prayers most heightened for you, and know that we're all in this shifting consciousness. Yeah. And thank you to everyone that's doing it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, keep it kind of sound, everyone. We'll be back for more wonderful interviews with wonderful people like Cheryl soon.